Welcome, fellow beekeepers. This is Jamie Walters, your live webinar training host. I'm pleased to share this educational webinar in hopes to make you a better beekeeper. Live sessions are now recorded on the fourth Sunday of each month at 7 o'clock p.m. through Zoom conference call. You're welcome to reserve a ticket at www.eventbrite.com. Search for Ohio State Beekeepers Association's events and click Tickets. Register by filling in your name and email address, and a confirmation email will be sent to you with a Zoom link. Each training session is recorded and posted on OSBA's YouTube channel. You're welcome to subscribe and be sure to click the bell to be alerted each time we upload a new video. Each month's speaker and presentation will be posted on OSBA's Facebook page and on our website at ohiostatebeekeepers.org. You're welcome to subscribe to the live webinar training news group to be alerted at the beginning of each month. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at live-webinar-training@ohiostatebeekeepers.org. And now on to our previous recorded webinar.
All right, so we're going to cover a bunch of different critters here tonight with the focus on bears. And I've been the last couple of years been trying to do a little more outreach, working with Barb down at ODA, working with Ohio State Beekeepers, and a lot of the local clubs up in Northeast Ohio to deal with bears and bees. It is we'll find out, they do cause problems, and the best thing we can do is be knowledgeable, right, about this to be making good decisions. So as Jamie said, my name is Geoff Westerfield. I work out of our Akron office with the Division of Wildlife. Our Akron office oversees all in Northeast Ohio. So we go everywhere from Lorain County down to Ashland, over to Jefferson, and then everywhere up to the northeast corner there in Pennsylvania and Lake Erie corner. But I, being a state employee, I do get to see and work with the staff all across the state. So you'll see in the bottom here, you see down here 2005 Trumbull County. So as we go through this presentation, you'll see a bunch of different bear pictures in here. And so I kind of put the dates in the county where these pictures came from. I am really bad, as most beekeepers, you get in the hives, you're like, man, I should have really done better documentation of my hives or taken better pictures or something like that. Well, work is no different. I'm always like, dang, I should have taken pictures when I was there. So I try to do as best I can with bears, but again, you'll see a lot of pictures here kind of scattered throughout Northeast Ohio. So who am I? As Jamie said, I work for the Division of Wildlife. I've been with the agency for 21 years now, pretty much the entire time dealing with what we kind of term human-wildlife interactions. Back in the day, we kind of called it conflicts, but not every human-wildlife dealing is necessarily a conflict, so we kind of broadened it out to interactions, and some of this even relates to bears as well. But as Jamie said, on the beekeeper side, I am also have been a Portage County beekeeper president. I actually stepped down recently, but spent many years with the Portage County beekeepers and Summit County beekeepers as well, and I've kept bees at my house as well. So I am able to kind of give a unique perspective on this whole kind of concept of dealing with bears and bees, in that I kind of know the biology really, really well. So I'm able to kind of piece that together. So what I'm hoping for is at the end of tonight, you have a really good handle on the biology aspects of it, and kind of the what we kind of call BMPs, or best management practices, for dealing with bears and bees and some of the other critters we'll hit at the end here. So just like beekeeping, right, we focus so much time on the biology and the understanding bees and learning about bees, and it's like seemingly a never-ending project to learn about bees. But the more we know about them, right, the better we are able to manage our hives and to manage the colonies we have. So bears, the exact same thing, right? The more we know about bears, the better we understand them, the better we can manage them as a pest that we deal with in our hives. So the status of bears in Ohio, right now, they are still state endangered. So that just means there's not a lot of them out there. But we do see an increasing number of bears in Ohio. I do think that we will see this status change in the next several years, but currently they are endangered. So what that means is that you just can't willy-nilly shoot these puppies if they're coming into your hives. I'll get into some of the ways that we deal with bears, towards the end. But if you have problems with bears, biggest thing is to let the Division of Wildlife know. We will work with you in helping address the problem and working towards a resolution that's best for both the bears and the bees and the beekeeper. So when we talk about black bears, we basically kind of put them into two categories, right? I always say, as a biologist, we're not necessarily, we're not doctors in rocket science here. So we talk in the realms of big bears and little bears. Big bears, they have a big, nice triangle head to them. The ears are really wide set apart. And when you look at them, these ears look really small in comparison to the head and the body. These little bears, long noses, so much like puppies and stuff. Those ears are a lot closer because that head hasn't filled out yet. And those ears look like big old huge radar discs right on top of his head. So this can be very helpful in trying to know what we're dealing with and help to know what the best tactic is moving forward to help address the problems that we may have. So bear movement, I have been using this slide a lot. When life gives you an opportunity, you grab it and run with it. So in 2018, in May, the Pennsylvania Game Commission had a bear that was, I don't remember exactly what the situation was with that bear, but they needed to move it. So they trapped the bear and relocated it. And right here, if you're familiar with Northeast Ohio, this is Pymatuning Lake. They took it right over to the edge of Pymatuning Lake. Thank you, PA Game Commission, and let it go. I'm not super keen on them moving them to the edge of the state because certainly it's getting closer to Ohio. But this is where they don't have a huge bear population. So this is an area where they try to get them out from contact with other bears in the state, which is okay. And so you'll see this bear was released here on the Pennsylvania side next to Pymatuning Lake. And this bear, when they moved it, they put an ear tag in it, a little silver ear tag. But my gosh, we were able to pick up this ear tag really well with sightings. And so you can see the trek that this bear made coming across Ashtabula through Trumbull, hit the corner of Geauga, into Portage County, came into Summit County, went up into Cuyahoga County, just outside Cleveland, made a line going south through Medina, into Wayne, almost got into Holmes County there, did an about face, we think ran right up Route 585, and went into Summit County again, and got hit by a car as he was making his way towards downtown Akron. So this bear, we have a good starting spot and we have a good ending spot. You can see this is almost exactly a month that this bear traveled, but he was a trucking. So this is not uncommon. We see bears in Ohio typically will move quite some distance. And this bear was a younger bear. And so, thinking about that big bear, small bears tend to want to move about a lot. Big bears might be setting up territory, and so they may not be moving as much. But even with the big bears in Ohio, we still see a lot of movement. So we know that because in 2015, we trapped a bear down in Vinton County. we had been trying like the Dickens to get a radio collar. So right here, you can see a radio collar has a big battery and a device on the bottom here, and an antenna that kind of comes off the bottom. And this device sends signals up to a satellite at predetermined spots. And we can collect those spots and kind of see where this bear is moving. So we have been trying for several years in both Northeast and Southeast Ohio to put a collar on a bear. And much like anything in life, it's much easier said than done. It took us several years to get a collar on a bear, but this Vinton County one finally presented itself. We felt that this bear, he's pretty distinguishable by a big white mark on his chest, that this bear had been in this area the year prior by some other sightings we had gotten. So we put a collar on this bear in Vinton County, and he immediately proceeded to run to the east and kept running to the east and kept running to the east and ended up almost all the way over in Maryland before he ended up meeting a demise. We don't know exactly what happened to him, but these collars, they give off a signal when an animal dies, and so we knew he was dead. But he traveled 158 miles from the spot that we collared him. So again, massive movements. So where we're at with bears, so you can see, looking at big picture in Ohio, and this is up through 2018, but these kind of trends don't really change from year to year. We get them pretty much in this line, kind of running down through Columbus all the way to Cincinnati and heading over to the east. So pretty much kind of hill country. Where there's woods, there tends to be bears. And you can see up in this northeast corner, this is kind of our bread and butter of where we deal with bears. So for my office out of Akron, we deal with bears on a pretty regular basis because we've got a lot of them. You can see the trends in bears over the time. 1993 is when we first started our official record keeping of bear sightings. And you see just general increasing trend of bears in Ohio. And so we fully expect this is going to continue as time goes along. So as I said, I expect that status to change. We every year take a look at each of the wildlife species in Ohio and make assessments, what their status needs to be. And bears continues to be one of these ones we keep, looking at because these numbers continue to increase. Again, speaking specifically to Northeast Ohio, you can see where our sightings are. Because we've dealt with bears the longest and the most in Ohio, we kind of have really kept really solid records of where these bears are, and we kind of keep annual trends. So the colors that you see just depend, is by year, and the trends don't change really from one year to the next. And you can see that's a pretty going back to that previous slide, pretty consistent picture of where we see our bears. So Lake, Geauga, Portage, Ashtabula, Trumbull, and a little bit into Mahoning is the bread and butter of most of the bear sightings in Northeast Ohio. But, this is slowly going to continue to expand out, especially as numbers increase. So it wasn't until 2018 until we got our first verified sow with cubs. We had some unverified reports prior to that, but we were never able to get pictures or anything like that. But with the advent of trail cameras, and in this case, this guy was bow hunting. He had a corn pile down for deer, and we will definitely be talking about this in a little bit. These bears came in and started chewing up his corn here. He thought it was pretty cool, so grabbed out his camera, took some pictures. But in 2018, we started getting our first sightings of sow with cubs. So this was our first time we could document we've got reproduction going on in Ohio. And then in 2019, we got a roadkill bear. So as a biologist, some of the not fun parts of my job is dealing with some stinky critters at times. So you can see this bear. She was hit by a car on the road, female. And so when this happens, we kind of go through and gather a bunch of data off these animals so we can kind of keep tabs on what the health of the bear.
Excuse me, Jeff. You just got.
I am unmuted now.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Don't know what
No,
happened.
I'll go back. So this is where I started muted, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So unless you're an excellent lip reader, I'll go back on this slide. So in Ohio, in 2019, we got our first black bear female that was hit on the road. So as a biologist, one of the maybe depending on how you look at it, cool or uncool parts of my job is I get to deal with some of the nasty parts of wildlife. And so this bear was hit on the road. We when that happens, we try to collect those animals and get a bunch of data. So you can see tape measure. We took a bunch of measurements, got some calipers here, and get a bunch of record data points so we can kind of keep a tab on the health of bears in Ohio. So in 2019, right after that first year, we got our first sow with cubs. We got our first female that was hit on the road. So with our sightings, we keep a lot of information on any of the bear sightings that we have. Our website at wildohio.gov is where we collect most of our reports now. So if you do see a bear in Ohio, please go on that website and report it. It collects all this different information here, and then we can kind of keep tabs on where the bears are. So that previous map that had the dots and stuff, that helps us kind of keep tabs on where those are. One of the interesting things when we look at the population in Ohio, and you think about that map on where those dots were, is we have a major road connectivity in Ohio. Lots and lots and lots and lots of roads. So that previous picture with that roadkill bear is not an uncommon thing. In fact, last year in 2020, just in Northeast Ohio, we dealt with 5 roadkill bears. So it's not uncommon for these things to get run over a car when you've got lots of roads. And you can see Ohio, we rank 5th in the country in the road density market, I guess you can say. So you can see big void here with road, major interstates, where a lot of our sightings are. This probably hems them in a little bit, but I can tell you that these things are clumsy. They love running roadways, especially along those ODOT fences. So they do get hit, but this will probably be at some level a limiting factor in how quick our bear population grows in Ohio. So again, with all this data we collect, we can take a look at the sightings. And so here is a graph that shows by year the number of sightings. It only goes to 2013. I kind of stopped keeping record in 2013 because it was pretty consistent year after year after year after year. So you can see all these different line graphs here of the sightings. So we kind of boil this down to a very simplistic picture of when you're going to find bears. So like Jamie said, we were going to do this in December, but May is a perfect time to be having a discussion about bears and thinking about them as potential pests. So you can see May 1st is kind of the benchmark where we start seeing our bear sightings start to increase. Here's Memorial Day, right around the corner. And now they start skyrocketing. And then we get to July 4th and they start dropping off big time. So really between May 1st and August 1st is where we see most of our bear sightings, with the peak being between Memorial Day and 4th of July. So as beekeepers, this is great to know, right? We know that starting right now is when we have the highest potential for bears to be messing with our hives. And once we get past 4th of July, we're not out of the woods, but we are sitting, at least a lot better as far as the potential. So when you deal with bears, you wouldn't believe how many calls we get with, hey, I have a bear track on my property. Believe it or not, most times it's not a bear track. Most times it's a dog track. It can even be a coyote track. So here you can see the big difference between tracks. On a canid, so a dog or a coyote, you're going to have 4 toes. They tend to be kind of rounded in a kind of horseshoe shape. Bears have 5 toes. And you can see we can lay a good pencil across and hit these 4 toes really well, almost in a straight line. And this other toe kind of drops down a little bit, but you don't get that big horseshoe like you will on a dog track. So if you see a track on your property, try to, make sure it is a bear and not a dog, because we want to make sure we got good data coming in. And obviously, if we're trying to do pest management, we want to know what we're dealing with, right? So when we're dealing with, looking at diseases in our hives, we want to make sure we're IDing them right, or else if we're going to be treating, we may not be treating appropriately and not getting the resolution we want if we're not knowing what we're dealing with. This is the norm for what we find with bear tracks. This is a bear track, but you can see not very descriptive. You would think these big, huge critters that are walking out there are going to leave these big, huge prints, and they don't. More often, I see great tracks with dogs than we do with bears. Bears typically kind of lumber along, so they're not pushing down when they're running, and so typically pretty light tracks. So finding bear tracks is actually pretty hard unless you're finding in really, really soft mud on a creek bank or snow, or in frames. So when bears get into hives, and I'll show you some pictures here, they kind of make a ginormous mess. But the beauty is they're going after these frames, most oftentimes for the larvae there. And in the process of doing that, they're stepping on things and stomping on stuff, and they'll sometimes leave some good tracks here. So you can see this beautiful track come across here, just like that last picture. Last toe drop down here. Same thing here. You don't see this last toe over here, but really perfect print of that bear stomping on some frames. We don't have our 2020 data complete yet, but looking at everything, looking at kind of 4 years here of damage with bears. You can see these are the number of complaints in the parentheses that we got. So in 2016, we had 11 issues with black bears getting into bird feeders, 4 into garbage, 3 into hives, and so forth. This stays really consistent year after year. So when we look at the top several, bird feeders is almost always number 1. This is going to be key to remember here in a second. Beehives, though, is not too far behind. It's usually in the top couple each year. So we do deal with bears getting into beehives. Obviously, it's not any revelation there. So again, feeder damage. These bird feeders are key. I think one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have as a wildlife agency moving forward in a state that has not had bears, in a large population of bears, is dealing with bird feeders. Because bears love bird seed, and they love destroying bird seed or bird feeders. They'll tear these hives to smithereens to get to that bird seed. And this little baffle here that's for squirrels ain't going to do much to stop this bear as he bends this whole pole over to get to that bird feeder. So the biggest thing with bird feeders is if you've got a bear coming in, get all of those feeders out. Not just yours. Talk to your neighbors, look around, drive up and down the road, see who else has bird feeders out there. Because if we've got bird feeders out there right now and these bears are getting into them, they're not going to leave that area if your neighbor's got bird feeders up too. So just go over, knock on the door and talk to them. Say, can you please pull your bird feeders down? I saw a bear. We have a bear in the area. We don't want them to stick around, obviously. Can you at least take your bird feeders down, or at least get all the seed out of them for a while? One of the big things I've been pushing lately is for bird feeders to only feed between December 1st and April 1st. So these are a really good benchmark for when to have your feeders out there. These birds don't need our feed during the summers anyways. Really don't need them even in the wintertime. It's really, bird feeders are really kind of more of a selfish thing to see the birds. But if you are going to feed the birds, stick between this December 1st and April 1st. And what's beautiful about this is that most of our bears are not out and about right then, right? Because they're hibernating and denned up. So this is, if you're going to have bird feeders, this is a huge recommendation, at December 1st to April 1st. But we don't just deal with bird feeders. it is increasingly getting popular for guys to put, I shouldn't say guys, but hunters in general, and sometimes not even hunters, just people that want to see deer, to put out deer feeders. So we, especially with trail cameras and hunters out there, we get lots and lots of pictures of bears on deer feeders. And just like bird feeders, they will come into them. They love corn, and they will destroy these deer feeders. So, especially ones like this that cost a little bit of money, you don't want to be replacing that on a regular basis. So same rules, December 1st, April 1st. These are the times when you should be putting out corn for deer. You get to this time of year, don't put that corn out there. All you're going to be doing is running in potential problems and drawing bears into your hives. And then not only feeders, but indirect feeding as well. So you can see here, big pile of corn put down for the deer. They don't have a feeder out there, but same thing, right? They're trying to draw the deer in, or raccoons, or whatever they want to see. But this indirect feeding can also pull these bears in as well. So again, same rules, December 1st to April 1st is when you should be doing any feeding if you're doing it at all. So all this data, as I started, really wanting to work with beekeepers a little more and specifically dealing with bears, I said, wait, we got all this data. Let's take a look at how bad is this bear problem in Ohio. So when we looked at the Northeast Ohio reports between 94 and 2019, we had almost a little over 1,700 reports. So quite a few reports we're dealing with here. Went through, sorted through them all, took some time, looked for which ones we had that had hive damage noted on them, and ended up being 82 of them. So about 5% of our bear reports involve hive damage. So it's not all of our reports, but 5% is not small chump change either. So the moral of this story is 5% means you've got 5% chance that you're going to have bears get in your hives, and probably something to be mindful of, at least be cognizant of as a beekeeper. So I also took a look at this damage by month because I thought, well, let's see if there's any, specific times we really need to focus on this issue. And guess what? Just like that earlier slide on that May 1st to August 1st with the focus on Memorial Day, the 4th of July, same exact thing here. So we're not seeing a huge shift. You can see towards the end of the year, there's a little bit of a spike as they're going into getting ready to go into hibernation. But really the focus is this time of year is when, if as a beekeeper, if you're going to get hive damage, it's right now. So as I said, they kind of make a good mess of things. If you haven't seen bear damage on a hive, this is classic. They knock everything over, tear it to ribbons. Sometimes you can get the bees back together. Hopefully the queen didn't get squashed in all the destruction. But you'll see with bears on hive damage, they'll scatter the pieces all apart and everything's all broke up, right? They're trying to get in there. They're not the most delicate of critters. They're gonna, bear in a beehive, not bull in a china shop, bear in a beehive tear things apart pretty well. And once they find food, they will usually return. So you can see here, bear came in, at night, got into the hives, and then the beekeeper righted stuff back up, and he came right back and got into them again. So, this is a winter time. So again, you saw that little spike. This is a February picture, so a little odd. Bear obviously got the hungries and wanted to go out and look for some food. Again, while this is our prime time, you always have the potential out there. You saw that last chart. We had sightings every month. But once they do find food, they will return. So thinking about those bird feeders, deer feeders, indirect feeding, once they find a source, they will want to come back. They're kind of not the brightest, but they know where a good meal is. So we want to make sure to kind of address things right away if we do start getting bears coming in. So fencing is the best insurance policy, right? We think about our hives and managing our hives, and we're gonna treat check for varroa mites. We're gonna treat when we need, right? We're doing those things because we spend money on our hives, and we want to make sure that we have the best hive possible. So, we're kind of getting those insurance policies, right, for making sure that this hive's going to be strong and ultimately get through the winter months. So with bears, fencing is by far your best insurance policy you can have. With fencing, there's lots of different types of bear fencing you can put out there. See if I can get this to play here. So you can see that, you guys can see this video, right, Jamie?
No, we cannot.
Okay, hold on a second. Get this on. Is it on there now? Nope. Bet you can't. Well, I will save you. You go online. It's minimized on my screen now. I'm done with you. So I get back to see what you guys are seeing. There we go.
It looks like it's getting ready to play, but it just hasn't went yet.
Okay. Yeah, so I've got a static slide here. That's why it looks like it's getting ready to play. So basically, again, you go online, look up, and I can provide links if you want a direct link. But Michigan took a look at fencing, and so they kind of did some test plots with bears. And these bears come into this fencing, they get zapped, they're bolting out of there right quick. The whole point of this Michigan work was really to kind of come up again with best management practices for fencing on bears, and to so that way we got the best insurance policy we have. We don't have the budget model. We've got the Cadillac insurance. Oopsie. Get back on here. All right. So you can see fencing specs, right? Yep. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is kind of the bread and butter. What came out of that Michigan work is for a 12 by 12 area, eight plastic tread-in posts. So you can go to the Tractor Supply, Rural King, any of the farm supply stores and get plastic tread-in posts. Super easy to put in. You want to get a couple good solid corner posts, so either fiberglass or metal with insulators. A roll of some wire. You're going to run 3 strands. So if on a 12 by 12, it can be 48 feet of each going around. Fence charger, and then some double insulated wire for the grounding rod, and then a grounding rod. And that's all you need for your bear fencing. You can see here this beekeeper put a solar panel on top of an old deep, drilled a hole in the side of it. He's got his he's got a battery in here. It's charged. The solar's charging up a battery. But so you can be innovative in how you do this. Just be careful because sometimes we'll get other pests around our bees if we get some wasps and yellow jackets and that kind of stuff utilizing that. And again, there's all different kinds. You can get this mesh fence. You can get polystrand. You can get this tape to run around your hives. So lots of different ways you can do it. But again, thinking about those specs. And then if you want to have some extra insurance, if you're running stainless steel wire, you can take, I use metal step flashing for chimneys. You can get it at the hardware store. It's shaped in an L. You clamp it down, put it over top your metal stainless steel wire, put a little sheet metal screw in there so it doesn't blow off in the wind. Grab a jar of your favorite peanut butter. Actually, probably best to grab, not your favorite because you want to eat that. Grab some cheap peanut butter and smear it right on this step flashing. And as that bear comes in, that peanut butter is going to be a huge enticement to it. It'll lick that step flashing and not only get the shock, instead of on it, on the body, but right there on its tongue. it'll remember that really well and bolt out of there. So again, some fencing basics for your hives. You can see this person had a fence up, but had some problems with it. Keep your hives back at least 2 feet. These bears got long arms. They're no dummies. They'll reach right through, grab those boxes, and pull them right on through. So keep those hives at least 2 feet back from that fence. I know we want to try to minimize how much we're spending and the effort to put it up, but it does us no good if he's going to reach right on through. Manage your vegetation. Obviously, if you have used electric fences before, you don't want to get shorts out, because then if we've got that, our fence isn't working to shock. So we want to make sure to manage our vegetation to keep it away from the lines, and regularly check that it's on, because if it's not on, it does us no good. So go out there, check your chargers, make sure that they're operational, and that you've got things still in order. And then looking at some of what came out of that Michigan research. So what they kind of looked at is that that bears that removed bait at electric fences significantly less. If you had the fence up, the bears weren't hitting that bait, is the long and short of it. So electric fences work. And that if they've received that food reward, they're going to come back. So again, if you didn't have it 2 feet back, or we don't have fencing up, those bears, they find those hives, they're going to come right back to them. So again, fencing works, and it's your best insurance policy. I'm going to go back. I will make a comment. So again, I'm a beekeeper. I deal with bears. I'm in bear country. I'm in Portage County, so I'm in bear country here. And I don't put electric fence up. That's because I'm lazy, but I take that risk, right? So just like any other insurance policy, it's how much do you want to protect it? I take that risk by not putting that electric fence up. So I'm not, I'm always a straight shooter with everything. But I do have one advantage, not that because bears pop up, before we know where they're at sometimes, but I also have the added advantage to kind of know where they are for the most part. So if I do see them coming around, I do start spending a little more time with where they're at. Now, my hives also are really close to the house. So not that that's a fail safe, but it gives me a little bit of protection, and affords me, if I do have bears that come in, I can get that electric fence up real quick with my charger. So we've got a policy for tracking bears. We look for confirmation. So we kind of will take sightings where there's no confirmation, but if you've got tracks, photos, stuff like that, snap a picture. When you go to our website and then put that sighting in, you can upload those pictures. Then we can mark it as a confirmed sighting. That's what we really focus our where the bears are at mapping. Trail cameras are huge. So if you've got trail cameras, or you think you might have a bear out there, throw a trail camera up. They're really cheap. You can get them cheap at Walmart anymore. And you'll really know what's coming in, but not just bears. Sometimes you can pick up on what the other critters are that are coming in and messing with your hives. So, in this case, you got a skunk coming in here on this trail camera, then we've got skunks that are in the area, and we've got to be mindful of that when we're managing our hives. We do have a policy for dealing with bears. So first and foremost, public safety. So if we've got a bear that's a public safety issue, and for us, that's, he's, being aggressive towards people, charging people, getting into homes, structures, stuff like that. We jump on those right away and deal with those situations right quick. Fortunately, this is a very uncommon thing that we deal with. Bears do tend to keep to themselves for the most part. So public safety is not usually something that we really need to be, really super concerned about, but that is our first and foremost part of our policy. Removal of attractants is next. Now, obviously with bees, we can't just pick up those hives and run them away. If we got bird feeders, easy peasy, right? Take those bird feeders down, clean up seed, talk to our neighbors, really easy to remove attractants, or if they're getting into trash, we can get those trash cans in a garage or shed or something like that. But we can, thinking about the consistent food source, get that fencing up, right? That's how we remove the attractant. Get that fencing up. That bear comes in the next time, it's going to get the shock, and that's how we're removing that attractant from that bear. Hazing is our next our kind of next level. So if the bear seems to be continuing to come back, he's kind of not getting the message. We have lots of different ways that we can haze bears, which is basically just scaring them off. We've got lots of noisemakers. Sometimes we'll loan those out to people. So that way, if that bear comes in, they can use those to scare them out. Shotguns, obviously being cautious of where you're shooting. Shotgun shots into the ground, again, they're endangered, can't shoot them, but just making the noise, that usually does a pretty good job of scaring them and getting them out of there. That can be a good hazing technique as well. And then also, we've got stuff like other noisemakers that we can use if need be. We've got rubber buckshot, rubber slugs. We don't loan those things out, but if we've got it in a sometimes we'll get those over to sheriffs and police departments and that kind of stuff. And then if all else is failing, we can relocate if needed. We have a 3 strikes and you're out policy. So if we have to trap a bear a third time, we kill it at that point. Obviously, he's not getting the message, and he's continuing to do the bad things that he's doing. So we kind of jump and say, hey, unfortunately, bear, you're not getting the message, and we just need to deal with you at that point. So not something we want to do. We actually to date have never had a bear get to a third strike. And so we go through this level of our policy for dealing with them. Usually works really well to kind of get them moved on their way and out of the area. So we do have several different traps at our disposal. This is what's called a culvert trap, just a big culvert pipe put on a trailer. We put a bait inside, bear walks in, door closes behind him, hook it up to a truck, and off we go. Sometimes a lot easier said than done. Sometimes getting these traps in the right spot can be difficult. So we do have what are called Aldrich snares that are foot snares that we can also use to trap bears. Does a good job. We are kind of picky on where we use those because we got to catch a bear. He's a big guy. We got to hold him good. We don't want to get pets and that kind of stuff in these kind of snares. So we're really picky on where we use these. But point is, we've got several tools at our disposal. We do trap them. Again, we do collect the data. See here, we're getting a weight on this bear. And then you can see in this ear here in Ohio, we use yellow ear tags, big button ear tags. You see the other one here, we double ear tag them. So that way, if one rips out, we still got a verification on that bear. And that's how we kind of keep tabs for our 3-strike policy. Thinking about other critters, deer are one that we need to be thinking about. During November, bucks are rutting, they're fighting each other. They can come up and knock this hive. So I had this slide up with that bear that came in on that other one. Actually, this was a picture of a bear that came in, a deer that actually knocked this hive over. You can kind of see the difference here. This stuff isn't tore apart, smashed to smithereens. So that's how sometimes you can tell the difference with deer. But when they're running around, getting from point A to point B, fighting each other, things like this can happen. So just keep in mind that, you may have a hive that's knocked over. You think, oh, what else could do this? Take a second, and look. And we kind of verified this by a bunch of deer tracks all over here. These bucks were coming through and just pushing each other around and happened to knock the candle off the shelf with the kids in the store. So skunks, I'm sure you've had to deal with skunks from time to time. Telltale skunk damage is little holes here. So independent little holes, they kind of will get in, dig. They're going after grubs in these situations. So you see this, get that grub X down there. make sure that you're treating for grubs, because just like removing attractants for bears with those bird feeders, same thing with skunks. We want to remove that attractant. We don't want to draw them into our hives. So if you see this, definitely start getting some grub treatment down, at least in this general area where that skunk's coming in and doing the damage. You start seeing this is raccoon. Raccoons are really good. They use their hands really well. So they'll get in and start rolling this sod back. So when you start seeing stuff that looks like it's been rototilled, you got skunks, same thing, coming in for these grubs. Get that grub killer down. So that way we can push these raccoons on their way. With both skunks and raccoons, you can trap them. However, if they are trapped, you cannot relocate them. We deal with, especially raccoons, several different diseases. And so we don't want to spread diseases amongst the raccoons. So if you do trap raccoons or skunks, they do have to be killed or released on site. In the case of this, obviously we're going to deal with the grubs first. Hopefully that'll drive them out of there. If you need to address it right away, get that raccoon trapped. You need to dispatch that animal, kill it in some, by shooting it is the best way to go. If you're in an urban area, you can take it outside that city limits. Somebody that's another beekeeper that's got hives in a township. Say, hey, can I bring this raccoon out there? I need to get rid of this raccoon and shoot it and work with them on that. Tack strips are another one. So you can see the tack strips in the front of the hive here. Obviously, it's going to keep the skunks from coming up, raccoons from coming up, and working on the front of the hive here. You can get these tack strips at the, these ones here, which are for carpet, right at Home Depot, right on your entrance there. Tack that down. And as the skunk comes in and wants to start pawing at the front to get these bees activated and coming down to the front so he can eat them, the tack strip will work to kind of make him not want to slam his paws on the front there. Mice are another one. So, we're a little bit past dealing with mice right now. We went through a nice mild winter. So your hive should be doing really, really well. And we got nice strong hives. They do a good job of keeping mice at bay. It's not a fail safe. So what I typically do is I'll run entrance reducers year round on my hives. If you think about an entrance reducer, this distance between the bottom of the brood box here and the entrance is 3/4 of an inch. Typically our entrance reducers are cut about halfway, which takes us down to 3/8 of an inch. The good thing is at this time of year, mice cannot get through. They're all big. They can't get through 3/8 of an inch. Their bodies and heads are too fat to get through there. So that's kind of why I run entrance reducers year round, especially when you've got the advantage of running screen bottom boards. You can get your ventilation through the bottom there, and just keep this entrance reducer on to make sure mice don't get in there. And then you're good to go once we get into winter months start coming. And the mice, can't get in there and start making little homes. So with that, I'll take any questions you guys have. I see there's a couple questions here in the chat. I'll hit these questions here while people are thinking. You can put questions in the chat box. Thanks for posting that video on the fencing. So is there anything else besides fencing that can be used to deter bears from coming around? The biggest thing is bird feeders. Again, you saw that they love that bird seed. So, follow those December 1st to April 1st rules for bird feeders. Trash is another big one. So just make sure you're not leaving trash cans outside. Usually you'll find the coons will get into it before the bears will. But in either case, get those trash cans secured. Ideally in a structure. If you go into Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, you'll see a lot of people will have structures they'll build to kind of keep those trash cans harder for those bears to get to. Bears are lazy. So if they're going to go for what's easiest, and so the harder you make it, the better. Barbecue grills are another one, both for raccoons and bears. Make sure those grills are cleaned up good. You don't have a lot of drippings underneath. You're cleaning them a couple times throughout the year, especially right now, right? We got probably going to have Memorial Day picnics. So get out there, get things cleaned up, scrub right underneath that grill, clean that grill up, clean the inside up. So we're not having a lot of smells attracting those bears from coming in. So biggest thing is attractants. Just deal with the attractants and what would want them to be coming around. What voltage is needed to stop bears? That's one of the reasons why I like peanut butter fence and that flagging with the peanut butter on it. Any volt or any shock to the tongue, they're going to know. The biggest thing, if you haven't used electric fence before, when you buy a fence charger, you're buying it dictated by the length of fence that you're running. So if you're going to run a huge horse pasture, you're going to need a big fence charger. Well, in most cases for beekeepers, we're not dealing with huge areas. We're dealing with, we just want to protect, a relatively small area around our hives. So usually the real small fence chargers are all you need. So low voltage. And again, if you use that peanut butter technique, will be all you need to keep those bears out of there. Those tread-in posts, one of the things I really like about that, if you don't want to leave your fence up year round and you want to just focus on like this time of year, is that you can turn the fence charger off, yank everything out, leave your grounding rod there in the ground, throw everything in the shed, and then when it's time to get out there, May 1st, you can haul everything back out. Takes you a matter of 20 minutes to set everything back up again, and you're ready to go. So those tread-in posts are really handy to use.
All right, Geoff. Tony's got one question. Up further, it says, what type of reach do bears have, and how far from the fence should the hives be placed inside?
So 2 feet. That 2 feet is your kind of guideline. You want those hives pushed back from the edge of that electric fence 2 feet. I had a guy up in Brecksville that he didn't have electric fence up. He had hives. And what the bear was doing was he was coming up from the woods, getting up to he had a privacy fence, and the bear would come up to get on the privacy fence and reach over and grab because he had the hives right against the back of that privacy fence. He would just reach over and grab them. So that 2 feet, you want to make sure it's 2 feet away from that electric fence to keep them from being able to grab. If you go watch that video from Michigan on that research they were doing, you'll see those bears, they're no dummies. So if you only run 2 strands, they'll actually put that first foot through, get their head ducked up under, and then grab that stuff and then pull and go real fast. 2 feet is good, but make sure you got those 3 lines up to make sure that he can't get his body weaseled through and not hit one of those lines. But again, use that peanut butter. It's going to get him well before he even thinks about starting to put a foot through that fence.
All right. Galaxy Note asks, how do bears handle the vertical wire when they eat the frames?
Just chewing. That wire is really thin, right? So they're not delicate. Again, they're smashing and trashing. So they're just going to start yanking on that wire. I'm sure if they got it back on their molars, they would chew right through it. But they're going to get in there and with their paws just start yanking and pulling. And as they're going, they're just going to start pulling that wire right through. So that wire is not going to help you at all. It's not going to stop that bear at all. And he'll still get to everything and destroy everything, even with that wire in there.
All right. Angel's question, is there anything we can do to prevent the bucks from rutting besides an electric fence?
Yeah. So deer, that electric fence works great on deer. So if you've got gardens, that peanut butter fence is awesome for deer on gardens or even landscaping. So that will help as well. With rutting bucks, so they're kind of, deer don't like, they're wary, they're prey species, so make lots of noise. That same, there's, I work with a lot of farmers with deer damage using what we call bangers and screamers, which are basically glorified fireworks that are shot out of a starter pistol. So when we work with law enforcement agencies with bears, or if we're dealing with bears, we take those bangers and screamers with us. We loan them to the police farms. Again, sometimes we'll loan them to landowners as well if they've got bears coming in to basically shoot out and scare the bears off. But that works great for deer as well. So noise, making sure those noise are there. Now, if you've got hunters in the area, they're probably on your property. They're not going to be too happy about you chasing rutting bucks off. But if you've got even hunters around the area, you're working to keep them off your property where you've got your hives, those bucks will steer clear of that area and still stay in the general area. And those hunters in the general area should be fine with even with actually probably increasing the amount they're on. But when bucks are rutting, they're moving around a lot as well. So so that electric fence will put at least, a stop to them, probably getting right close to your hives. Again, if we're working on that 2 feet distance, right, by the time they hit that electric fence with their rump as they're fighting or their heads as they're fighting, our hives are still 2 feet away. We should still be good. And I guess I would be remiss as being an agency that sets hunting regulations. The less does you have around, the less bucks are going to be around. So if that's your goal, is to have no bucks around, encourage hunters out there to take the does and try to keep the population of does down on your property there.
And Peggy's got a statement. How do you keep the PA bears over on their side?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we need to get the federal government involved and build a wall, right? There's no easy way. So animals are going to move to where there's space. That's one of the big requirements when we look at trying to increase wildlife on an area: food, water, shelter, or a home, and space. So when we're Ohio, we don't have a lot of bears. They're looking for that space. And that's why we see a lot of these young bears. They're just out roaming around trying to find a spot where they don't got to fight a big old Bruin that's going to, whip the living snot out of them. So they're looking to go where there's no bears and there's space. So unfortunately, we can't do a lot to modify that component. So it just kind of is what it is. So not really much we can do other than give stern talkings to the PA Game Commission to quit throwing them on the line. But again, they're trying to minimize, the bears. And they got a bear that's getting into hives in a spot over there in PA. They want to get it away from that area, so they're trying to not get it to come right back to that hive and cause damage again to that beekeeper. So they're trying to get them in an area where they don't have a lot of bears, which unfortunately is just this way because think of it kind of like a feathering effect, right? As the population diminishes, you've got more and more space for those bears to be there.
And Galaxy Note: how do you deal with and remove the mother raccoon and her young that have made a home in their crawl space?
Well, just like beekeeping, right? We're keeping tabs on our hives, monitoring. Goes a long ways to dealing with varroa. So with your home, monitor. Same thing, same principles hold. You want to make sure that raccoons don't have easy access to those crawl spaces, those areas around your home. So, as you come out of the winter months, right, we're thinking about, as we're coming out of the winter months, we're thinking about our bees, thinking about all the stuff we got to do, finish the painting, finish the screwing stuff together, ordering the stuff we need. Take a trip around your house and take a look and see, is there areas where those raccoons, some boards come loose over the winter winds. wood got rotten through the last spring, or whatever the case is, that you can see where maybe the raccoons are starting to use that area of the house. Because ideally, you don't want to have raccoons having the babies in the first place. Because unfortunately, once they have the babies, you either got to wait till the babies are big enough that you can work on getting them out of there, which is going to be, typically around 4th of July is kind of usually the big benchmark I kind of put down there, where those babies are up and moving pretty good. And so you kind of got to deal with them till then, or you got to trap those babies as well. And just like I said, with the able to trap the raccoons, you can't relocate the adults, you can't really locate the babies either. So unfortunately, you're going to have to kill those. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, killing adults is a lot easier than killing the cute little baby raccoons. So if people have raccoons, they're not causing massive problems right this time of year, I usually say hold off until that 4th of July, get through your 4th of July picnic, then jump on getting in there and work on getting those raccoons out of there. You can start trapping them. You can sometimes get a one-way door on there. Sometimes if they're climbing up a spot, to get to that crawl space or attic, you can cut tree limbs back, grease downspouts up, stuff like that, to kind of keep them from being able to get there. So when they come out the next night, slide down, they can't get back in. Kind of a one-way door concept, and then give it a week, seal everything up good, you're good to go. So prevention goes a long way, just like a lot of the stuff with beekeeping.
And Angel's question, is there a part of Ohio that ODNR tends to relocate the bears to?
You want the trade secrets, I see, Angel. No, we don't have any set place that we take the bears to. Fortunately, for my 21 years I've been around, I can count on one hand the number of times we've had to relocate a bear. So fortunately, at this point in the game, we haven't had to do it a lot. When we do, we take them to our properties and release them on our public hunting areas. Because it's our property, we want to minimize putting the problem on somebody else. When we do let those bears go out of that trap, we haze the living snot out of them. We make their lives pretty miserable when they're with us. So that way they have bad experiences with people, and hopefully that deters them from wanting to be in areas around people, and in a lot of cases that means around where hives would be. So and we kind of make those decisions on where we're going to move them once we get a bear in a trap. So it kind of depends on where we trapped them. We want to move them as generally as far as possible without making us make 8-hour round trips. So typically we'll go 3, 4, 5 counties away. Usually that's pretty good. And again, hopefully that bear has been moving around and he just kind of honed in because we did something not right by leaving the attractant there and not getting our electric fence up quick enough, that hopefully he'll just move on and everything's good. So.
And I got my own question on this. In the northwest region of Ohio, there was no bear, but up in Summit or up in Toledo area, there was a few.
Toledo, yep.
Is that just a gradual transition of the bears spreading out?
Well, we don't know. So we got a couple things to think about, right? We know from those 2 slides, bears move a lot. So, that bear could have been from Pennsylvania and just been on a long trek. And maybe he got picked up, somewhere along the way on another sighting. That Toledo one, I do faintly remember that sighting. We don't think that was the case. We actually think that one came from Michigan, and he traveled a decent ways coming from the lower peninsula of Michigan that just happened to make his way into Toledo. It was a verified sighting. But if I recall, I think it was just that one that we've had up there. So rogue bear must have been like that Vinton County bear, just on a long trek. So
All right. If anybody has any other questions, I want to thank Mr. Geoffrey Westerfield for coming tonight. And because half of the state, remember, we're all in different areas, we all have different microclimates, and along with the bears and the pests. So we covered a wide variety of things. Just remember, not having that temptation for the bears or the skunks or the raccoons or anything else to stay there and taking care of it that way. But I want to thank you for your time tonight. That was a lot of good education.
Yeah, and and like I said, at wildohio.gov, you can go on that and you type in a report of wildlife sighting. It'll pull up the webpage for you to report bears. You can go to that same page. We don't want people reporting nuisance situations there because we want to get in touch with you ASAP. So you got a bear getting in your hives, don't put the report in there because we don't check those reports every day. It says on there, if this is causing a damage, it'll give you the numbers for your region of the state to get a hold of the right divisional wildlife office and give a call. We'll work with you again to help address that situation and hopefully get it to where that bear moves on and isn't causing damage.
And other than that, I want to thank everybody tonight. We're getting tons of thanks from Peggy Garnes. Says, thank you, Geoff. Good information for the next time a bear stops over to visit her apiary. From Tony, thank you very much. Angel, thank you very much. This was great. She's in Portage County. So I want to thank everybody tonight for stopping by, taking the time out this wonderful evening. It was a beautiful day today. And thank you, Geoff, Mr. Westerfield. Greatly appreciate your time and effort in putting this together.
All right, keep those bees going strong.